Hello everyone. So I'm legally obligated to respond to this asshole yet again. So let's begin.
Yes, I'm a YouTube atheist.
But you're just not a YouTube skeptic. You have totally abandoned skepticism for the religion of feminism. Man, what a shame. And you had such potential too.
But try not to hold that against me, okay?
If I ever become as clueless as Steve Shives is, will somebody please put me out of my misery? Please. Please. Because if I ever become this stupid, I don't want to go on living anymore. Life is not worth living at that point.
Here are 5 toxic things about YouTube atheism.
Right, because you don't want to use the word stupid like you used to, just in case you offend somebody.
Number 1, it has a sexism problem. Many of the most popular atheists on YouTube are brazen anti-feminists who insult and belittle women and men, but mostly women, who speak out against gender inequality.
I believe you mean those who speak out for gender inequality. When Sargon of Akkad, who you say is one of YouTube's biggest misogynists, offered you 1,000 British pounds for a feminist charity of your choice in exchange for an hour of your time in a live stream, you wouldn't even fucking respond. Holy fuck, Steve, if I were you, I would have taken the money and then just sat there and berated Sargon for that fucking hour. If you really fucking cared about gender equality, you would have taken the money. You're a fucking idiot for not taking the money. Think of all the actual good that money could have done for women in third world countries if you'd actually have taken it. But oh no, you can't take it because it comes from the big scary Sargon of Akkad. Oh. Then when the amazing atheist set out to raise $200,000 to actually help women in the third world, you had nothing to do with it. You don't want anything to do with it because it has TJ's name on it. Oh, can't be associated with that. No, can't be associated with that. You know, can't actually do something to help further a cause that you claim to believe in that has someone else's name on it that you don't like. You're full of shit, Steve.
They also proudly deny the existences of things like the wage gap, rape culture, gender imbalances in political and cultural representation, and other problems that are widely accepted and seriously discussed outside of the misogynist circle jerk that is the atheist community on YouTube.
Yes, because offering you money to help a cause that you believe in and raising money for a cause that you believe in, or at least you claim to believe in, is something that misogynists love to do. Do you fucking hear yourself, man?
But lest you think that sexism is the only form of bigotry running rampant in atheist spaces on YouTube, let me assure you.
You know, I'm actually glad that I don't own a gun, because at this point I want to shoot myself in the fucking head. And we only just finished the first toxic thing about YouTube atheism. My God.
Number 2, it also has a racism problem.
I am seriously starting to think that this video is going to be the end of me.
And it's the best kind of racism too, the willfully oblivious kind.
You mean the kind of racism that does not judge people by the color of their skin? That kind of racism? Oh dear.
One of the most subscribed to atheists on YouTube recently made videos espousing his views that, for example, black Americans who speak out against racial injustice are part of a victim cult.
Nice blowjob lips, Steve. I kid. But you basically just said that you watched The Amazing Atheist's last video where he addressed accusations of racism because he talked about these exact accusations. You see, Steve, when this is considered racism and this is considered racism, and the fact that there weren't enough black Oscar nominees is considered racism, you have established a victim cult. Instead of focusing on problems that are actually problems and not just these fake bullshit problems, you have a victim cult.
Or the displacement of black folks by gentrification isn't a problem because it results in nicer neighborhoods with fewer thugs hanging around.
TJ merely said that he'd rather go to a nice new neighborhood than the fucking ghetto. That's what he said. You're misrepresenting misrepresenting what he said, Steve. He wasn't stating a political opinion. He was just sharing his own personal opinion. Do you see the difference here? There is no racial subtext here. TJ doesn't care if the ghetto is full of black people, white people, Hispanic people, Native Americans, Asian people. Doesn't give a shit. Doesn't give a shit what the ethnic makeup of the residents of a supposedly soon-to-be gentrified neighborhood is. He doesn't give a fuck. I don't see why anyone would, unless they're actually racists. Like you.
Or, my personal favorite, the true outrage isn't racism, but people calling people like him racists. Because why would anyone think that the white guy who makes a virtue out of publicly not giving a shit about black people was a racist? It's ridiculous!
My god, TJ wasn't saying that he doesn't give a fuck about black people. TJ doesn't give a fuck about anybody. You see the difference here? Huh? Huh? But no, you have to misrepresent what he was saying and turn him into a racist. Holy fuck. How dishonest are you, Steve?
Hang on, I'm not done.
Where's a bottle of bleach when you need it?
Number 3, it has a religious bigotry problem too.
Steve, we all know you're a religious bigot. Your religion being feminism and social justice.
The ugliest religious bigotry in the YouTube atheist community is, of course, directed at Muslims, who are commonly stereotyped as potential terrorists and whose religion is viewed as inherently worse and more dangerous than any other.
Well, Steve, that actually does sound like a pretty accurate representation of Islam. Now, there are reformist Muslims out there who want to turn Islam into, an actual religion of peace. But if you just want to put your head in the sand every time a terrorist attack happens in Europe, or anywhere else for that matter, be my guest. If you want to be ignorant by choice, that's your choice. You can do that. If you don't want to look at the objective facts, you can do that.
But there's still plenty of judgmental condescension left over for Christians and religious folks in general.
Just like there's more room on your block list in general.
Many YouTube atheists will still cite belief in God as evidence of mental illness.
But your blind support of a well-known doc dropper and false flagger, Jenny McDermott, is not evidence of mental illness. Am I correct?
Thus denigrating religious folks and the mentally ill at the same time, not that they give a shit. Pushing the religious into the mud and then pointing and laughing at them is one of YouTube atheism's most treasured pastimes.
Would it be wrong for me to assume that one of your most treasured pastimes is making a list of people that you would ban from YouTube for life if you ever got the chance? Would that not be an unreasonable assumption?
That might be why. Number 4, it's addicted to drama and conflict.
So are a lot of other people, Steve. What's your fucking point?
Some of the most watched atheists on YouTube today began making videos in response to creationists. Some of them conducted themselves with class, dignity, and intellectual honesty, striving to have civil conversations with often exasperating adversaries. But even back in those less fractious early years, before the community's pervasive racism and sexism surfaced, the most popular personalities were those who gleefully bullied their targets.
I know, YouTube videos can be so hurtful to grown adults.
Small wonder then that once the creationist opponents had been exhausted, the bullies turned and found new enemies within atheist circles. And it turns out that most people who enjoyed watching obnoxious white dudes attack Christians were just as entertained by watching those same obnoxious white dudes attack women, Muslims, and racial justice activists.
Did it ever dawn on you to ask yourself why this is, Steve? If you ever find yourself wondering this question again, I'll give you a hint. It's more complicated than you think it is.
That the YouTube atheist community is now dominated by professional trolls who manufacture conflict in order to generate content and views would be bad enough if the damage they caused was confined to YouTube. But it's not.
So surely, Steve, right now you're going to tell us why it's not confined to YouTube, right?
Number 5.
I guess not.
It reflects poorly on the rest of the atheist movement. Ever wonder why, with a few notable exceptions, YouTube atheists are not invited to address secular conferences or represent atheist organizations to the public? If you're lucky, your first contact with atheism on YouTube came in the form of one of the more responsible voices.
Otherwise known as YouTubers that the Ministry of Shives approves of,
like Aaron Ra, Seth Andrews, or Matt Dillahunty.
I don't really have a big issue with any of the three that he just named, except for Aaron Ra's boner over the word feminism, but you can't win them all.
But unfortunately, it's much more likely that before you got to them, you discovered one of the people I'm talking about in this video, one of the proudly offensive, cluelessly bigoted assholes who might as well be caricatures of atheists drawn by alarmist evangelists.
Steve, you really freak me out sometimes. You remind me too much of Chancellor Sutler.
Mr. Etheridge.
A recording device was found wired into the central emergency broadcast system. DCD was Tchaikovsky's 1812 overture.
Add it to the blacklist. I never want to hear that music again.
We atheists like to pat ourselves on the back for being more reasonable than the religious folks, but I don't think that's true. And judging by the most visible representatives of our movement on YouTube, the most unreasonable belief shared by many of us might be the belief that we're the reasonable ones.
Do I really need to explain to you why this is utterly insane?
The hardest part is picking only 5. Catch you next time.
That was only 5? It felt like 5 million. That was fucking horrible. It was like watching the Hindenburg. It was awful. For fuck's sake, Steve, how, is it possible for you to lack any more self-awareness? Seriously, no, this is a serious question for you. Can you be any less self-aware at this point? Can your problem get any worse? I know that this is an appeal to popularity, but if everyone is pointing a finger at you and saying you have a problem, maybe you should step back and consider the fact that you actually might have a problem. Maybe. Thank you all very much for watching. I really appreciate it. Remember to like, comment, and subscribe. Steve Talon out.